welcome back to AtlantaMusicCritic.com. My name is Laird, your host. As you know, AMC is one of the few places you can learn in an in-depth way about leading personalities in the classical music world. This is a safe space from owning, destroying, shaming, and slamming. Today, AMC creator William Ford will be talking with composer Debra Kaye. Kaye is a graduate of Mannes College of Music and New York University and served on the faculty of the Mannes College Preparatory Division from 1991 to 2018. Heralded as a new voice on our horizon by Classical Modern Music Review, Debra Kaye's music has been described by Gramophone Magazine as an eclectic unfolding of creativity. With a compositional style that ranges from lyrical to grooving, experimental to coloristic, she is a winner of 4 Global Music Awards. Her catalog of chamber and orchestral music, art songs, choral, and theatrical works continues to expand through her steady stream of commissions and collaborations. An advocate for new music, Debra serves on the board of the New York Women Composers and is an associate director of Composers Concordance. She previously served as president of the Howland Chamber Music Circle. A new recording of music by Kaye, titled Rising Up, is now available for digital download on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, and Deezer. Scored for string orchestra, the 11-minute, one-movement work is performed by the Janáček Philharmonic Ostrava, Jan Kusura, conductor. Hailed as a strong and vibrant piece by Grammy-winning conductor Joanne Falletta, Rising Up was written in 2020 during the height of the pandemic lockdown. It is a dramatic piece about the physical, spiritual, and soulful experience of what it means to pick yourself up from the darkest place to a feeling of joy. Rising Up was recognized with a Global Music Award for creativity and originality, and on the day of its release, was chosen for ASCAP's new Music Friday playlist. Please join AMC's creator, William Ford, in conversation with composer Debra Kaye.
So good to meet you.
Hey, good to meet you also.
Yes.
I just have to say that even though I said not to use a fake background, I'm using a fake background. So
I guess, rules are made to be broken, right?
Exactly. Where are you located?
I am New York City based, but right now I'm out in California. I'm spending a little time out here in a beautiful place, and I'm doing a lot of work.
And I assume the weather's good there.
Yes. I hate to tell you how nice.
Oh, go ahead. I can take it.
Well, I'm in the San Diego area, just outside of the city, and it was 68 yesterday, sunshine. I took a walk. Lovely. Oh, well, it'll happen again. Keep the faith.
Exactly. As I mentioned in my email, where I like to begin is generally at the beginning, to try to understand what factors led to you becoming the success that you are. And as I read in your bio, you lived in Atlanta initially.
I did. I was born in Motown, but we moved to Atlanta when I was 6. So that was a huge contrast, especially back then.
Which portion of Atlanta did you live in?
Northwest, the greater Buckhead area.
How long did you live there?
Through high school. And then I guess I always had the urge to move north. I ended up going to college at Mannes College of Music.
What was it like growing up in Atlanta at that time for you? And how did you get an interest in music?
It was a great place to grow up. We could roam the woods freely and walk to school. It felt like a safe place then. And it was beautiful, all the trees. Musically, I was inspired to ask for piano lessons from hearing the overture to the Fantastics, the piano intro there. Then I started piano lessons, but there wasn't really at that time that much availability that I was aware of, or my family, for theory and a wider musical education. But when I was 16, I dedicated to music, really, and was able to go to Interlochen music camp, and that kind of was the beginning of a more serious pursuit of music.
I was wondering how your parents reacted to your interest in music.
They supported it, certainly. I think my dad wanted me to be a music ed major, of course. They were supportive. Other than the practical end of things, they wanted me to be okay in the world.
Were they musically inclined themselves?
They were appreciators. My mother always sang songs like from the American Songbook while she was doing the dishes, and she had a beautiful melodious voice. We had a lot of records around the house, and I had an Uncle Peter who sent us boxes and boxes, and because he worked for RCA in Columbia, and we'd get all these great recordings, and I could bring them in my room and listen. Really bonded with music, listening while falling asleep.
Well, when you were 14, 15, of all those records that you listened to, which ones do you remember particularly?
I think for me, it was probably Beethoven, the symphonies, and Tchaikovsky, the piano concertos were the ones I loved the most.
And then you say you went to New York after
Right.
leaving Atlanta. Went specifically to go to Mannes?
Yes. And I was a piano major. I had nibbled at the edges of composing, but there weren't really many female role models at that time. It didn't even occur to me to be a composition major, and I didn't have the theory background enough for that.
Were there people at Mannes that particularly stand out for you, as you would say there were mentors or big influences?
The theory teachers really were incredible. Well, of course, I studied with piano with Edith Oppens, the mother of Ursula, and she was an incredible musician. And she mentored me for a while. It's always a nice feeling, especially at that age. And then the theory department was incredible. We composed in the theory department, and it was a full service in terms of gave me the skills I needed later on to compose.
Were you good at the piano in your own estimation?
I don't think I had the physical talent to go as far as my understanding was. And ultimately, I felt I could go farther in composing. Like an Olympic gymnast or something, you have to have a certain physical ability. And since I didn't have a really serious early training, I didn't develop my technique by the time I was 12, but I had the feeling and the passion, and it came out in my playing, but I always felt a little limited technically. So I'm glad I veered in another direction.
Did you actually get feedback from your instructors and mentors that, well, maybe this isn't for you?
No, they were always just trying to help me develop it. One teacher did say, I prepared for an audition. It was for Aspen summer program, and I did the pieces well. I learned how to do them. And she said, when she got me after a few weeks, it was like, I didn't realize, basically the holes in your technique because your playing was so, beautiful or whatever. But no one discouraged me from pursuing. They were just trying to help me develop.
Did that particular comment have were you devastated, or were you oh no, that's a good point?
That one didn't devastate me. Certainly other things were capable of it. I just was young and wide-eyed. I think I was 17. So I was like, I'm here, teach me, like I'm in your hands now. Give me what I need.
You've got a Bachelor of Music?
Bachelor of Music in Piano Performance. And then later, I went back for grad school, quite a bit afterwards. And I went to NYU in the Gallatin division where you can create your own program. So I combined study of eurythmics and composition. So I had composition lessons with Todd Brief and Ruth Schoenthal, and then studied eurythmics and learned a lot about, flow and momentum in music. It really expanded my musicianship.
Did you compose from the times let's say you got your bachelor's degree forward, or when did you start? Is a much better way to ask it.
Yes.
When did you start composing seriously?
Well, I really dedicated to composing much later than most people. I had nibbled around the edges, as I said, and I actually had sketches from like when I was 16. I had, 4 phrases or so of a string quartet that I later developed. I found enough meat there that I wanted to pursue it. But it really wasn't until 2003 that I just focused totally on this. Although I did do a musical theater piece that was on off Broadway in 1998, The Ugly Duckling, and it ran 3 times, did very well.
Just jumping back to the sketches when you were 16, was it always in the back of your mind that, gee, I did these sketches and I need to go back? Or did you one day wake up and say, oh my goodness, look, I found my sketches from when I was 16? How did that play out?
No, that one particularly haunted me. It seemed like, you know, how you have certain themes in your life, or certain things that you need to get over, you know, that initial wound that everyone gets somewhere along the way. And this one came out of that. I felt like I really wanted to, it was one of the pieces I wanted to write in my life.
You made those sketches in response to some kind of life event. Not that you have to
Well,
talk about it, but is that
yeah.
accurate?
Yes, yes.
All right. Okay. When you did the Ugly Duckling,
Yes.
how did that come about?
You know, one thing leads to another. So when I moved to New York, I had a commission from the Fort Wayne Children's Choir to write a cantata. And then I wanted to put it into a chamber opera. So we did that at Steinway Hall. And then the woman, bless her heart, who helped my contact at Steinway Hall, connected me with this children's theater, family theater company that was just getting started. And it was a great collaboration. And we did the Ducks.
The process really grew out of people that you knew.
Yes. It's always been organic growth, one thing leading to the other.
Have you ever responded to like a request from a foundation or something to submit music or to get grant funds, for example, to support your composition? Or has it been more of the organic kind of?
It's been some of both. Well, now some of these things are so competitive with just so many more people applying. Earlier on, you know, I did get grants from Meet the Composer, from the New School, from Mannes, and, you know, several others, the Atlanta Music Teachers Association. You know, I've concentrated less on that now, and then sometimes through organizations that have smaller pools of applicants, or if I'm invited.
Are there contemporary composers that you particularly admire, find inspiration from, or say, gosh, that's good?
I love John Adams, although I don't really write in his style. I listen to a lot of music of my peers in the new music world in New York City. So that's where my focus has been lately. I draw influences from many people, but not any one person.
I listened to your string quartet.
The first one, the second one.
Howland?
Howland, yes,
Yes.
thank you.
And I was struck by the diversity of technique that you use throughout. And even though you say you don't particularly write in the style of John Adams, I did hear some of the repetitive kind of phrasing, which I thought was really effective. And it was a powerful piece.
So this one was a commission from the Howland Chamber Music Circle to celebrate their 25th anniversary. And I tried to tell the story of how they formed, and the second movement of that one quotes the Tchaikovsky string quartet second movement, which we had just heard at that series. It was written at about the time that the building, very special historic building, was built. So that seemed, I tried to tie it into things and just kind of the adventure story of the founders who created it. And then this series is in the Hudson Valley, and there are lots of birds. So there's one part that might remind you of bird song. It ends with the fiddling finish, kind of the roots music of the area as well. I love combining different styles and textures. You know, for me, the music comes out of the sound and what it makes you feel viscerally.
When you sit down to create a piece, do you have it in mind, the direction you want it to take, or does it grow, again, using the overused word organically, from you write down 3 notes and it goes from there? How does that generally work for you?
Some of both, really. I like to know the heart of the piece, the meat of it, and somewhat maybe of the trajectory. And then I just splash in and try to get distinctive kind of response, and then see if it's working or not, and why not, if not. Always have a flexible idea. Even if I thought I knew how it was going to end, I can change. Like when I was thought I was breaking up with my partner, I wrote a duet for 2 violins, and it was sad, and they were close. And then, at the end, of course, I knew what the end was going to be. They were going to break up. Well, then we got back together, and I revised my idea about what the ending would be.
Are you the kind that you're out eating at the local seafood place and you get an idea and you have to write it down, or is that movies?
For me, I mean, some people, that's what happens. Every now and then that happens, especially if I'm on a deadline, right? That brings it out of you. You got to be, incubating all the time.
So you might actually write something down, like you're finishing your soul or something, and all of a sudden, this pops in and you write it down, or you just keep it in mind?
Well, I'll sing it into my phone now. I put it in the voice message thing.
Do you use any like notation software, or do you do it all yourself?
I use Finale. I listen back on the MIDI, and then I go to the piano, and I always it varies. If I'm writing a piano piece, I'm at the piano more. I never thought I'd be sitting at a computer to write music when I started, but and I always check things at the piano, often singing a line, or to make sure how it feels to be in the piece as a performer too, and check it at the piano.
Have you ever written a piece not knowing where it was going to go?
Yes. I work a lot with Composers Concordance in New York, and I get asked to write a lot of short pieces for them. So they do weird combinations sometimes. This one was for bass flute and double bass. And I thought, what am I going to do with that? This one really came out of the sound, and I didn't have like an emotional idea or a story of any sort in mind. And I thought, well, then let it come out of the sound. And how am I going to differentiate? They usually play similar roles, the low notes. Or how am I going to not have them step on each other's toes? I wanted to find textures that gave more contrasts, and did a lot of percussive things on the bass, even tapping and sounds. You can get a lot of resonant sounds out of the big bass, and then some duet type material. And it just was, I called it Submarine Dreams.
And what did you think of the piece when you were done?
I love it.
What part of it do you particularly love?
I love the interaction between the 2 instruments. I love that they're differentiated by texture, that there's a kind of rhythmic groove going on from the bass sometimes. And I always seem to have a lyricism, and I love rhythm and dance things, and also, so it combines a lot of different things.
I'm always kind of struck when I hear conductors interviewed on radio. We don't ever hear them interviewed on television anymore because those days are gone. But they will talk about a great piece of work and the emotion it's conveying. And being a psychologist, I'm kind of the Stravinsky school that says, well, music is simply music.
Right.
And the meaning of it occurs in the interaction between what's actually being played and the listener. So if you set aside the program agenda of the composer, and just listen to the music, music still has an impact. Maybe the program or what the composer was trying to convey may add to that, but generally speaking, you don't need to know that before you listen to the music. Does that resonate with you, or do you conceive of it in a different way?
I mean, I think that's the beauty of music, it means different things to different people. And although, I might have some kind of emotional story in mind, it's vague and it means something to me. It doesn't have to mean the same to you. And yeah, music is larger than that. So it just sometimes helps give me a roadmap to think in those terms, but I don't always think in those terms. Just the vibrations itself, what do you feel when you hear a low rumbling? It's an interesting question. I think that, is it a universal language that's so specific? Most people are uplifted by Beethoven's Ninth. So what is that, but everyone's going to feel something a little bit different. Bach called himself a musical scientist, and I wonder sometimes what he meant by that. And sometimes I wonder if it means that there is a correspondence between the musical process and its metaphorical feeling quality. But to me, that's always a question and one of the mysteries. And yeah, I prefer not to pin it down.
When there's a premiere of your music, do you usually attend?
Yes, unless I'm unable to.
What's that experience been like for you?
Oh, it's exciting. Sometimes it's so exciting I can hardly stand it. And then sometimes it can be scary, because you go from this most private moment to this most public, such a private experience composing.
Have you ever had the experience where there's been a premiere of your work and you think, oh, that wasn't what I wanted?
Just a couple of times. Usually because of lack of rehearsal time. And usually I have a chance to work things out, at least in one rehearsal with the players.
Have you ever been disappointed in your own composition after you hear it played separate from you?
Well, by the time it gets to the performance, I'm usually happy with it. I am happy with it. And things that need to be worked out have been worked out in rehearsal.
Have you ever, after a premiere, gone back and edited?
Yes, you learn things each time you hear your piece, or after hearing a piece. Yeah, little things usually that most people wouldn't notice. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, I could have expanded that section, and I'll go back and add a whole new part. It's something you don't really know until you've had a chance to experience the music outside of yourself.
You have a new recording that has been issued of one of your pieces. You want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. Well, I've done a lot of recording, came out of the pandemic, flying, and did this recording of Rising Up, which I believe you've heard, and then 2 more albums are coming out in 2023.
Wow.
So tons of stuff. So Rising Up grew out was written basically in 2020 in the advent to the election, and also that then the pandemic lockdown happens, and it's really influenced by both. So I think of Michelle Obama and her saying, when they go low, we go high. That idea of you have to assert a positive vision and hope into the world. And then, during the lockdown, I pulled a book off the shelf that I'd been wanting to read for a long time. It was The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. And when I read this certain line, it really seemed to speak to me for this particular time. I see the sun, and if I don't see the sun, I know it's there. And for me, the composing is somewhat of a hero's journey, just going into the unknown. This piece is as well, in a sense, of starting at the low place and trying to find a roadmap, a way to get, to rise up and rise above it and have hope and know there will be a better future.
As you know, for many contemporary composers, the most frequently occurring number of times they have their pieces performed in public is 1, unfortunately.
Right.
You're very fortunate to be able to continue your legacy even with recordings. So not only are you having a performance record, you're also having a recording. Why do you think that is? Why are you having so much success?
It's been organic growth. I think players like to play the music that I write, and that helps. I've been fortunate to be able to work it out so that I'm able to record. Being in New York has been helpful too. There's so many good players.
And of course, part of the explanation is you write good stuff.
Thank you.
And I know you can't say that, but I can say that. It is accessible music.
Yeah.
And you can hear it once and you can walk away and say, I get that. With a lot of, or some segments of contemporary music, you can't always do that.
Right.
Last night, I was listening to my favorite classical music station, which happens to be out of Omaha. And every Friday night, they have a contemporary 2-hour show where they highlight contemporary composers, contemporary being from, say, early 20th century on. But last night, they featured Schoenberg.
Mm.
And I was really surprised. Of course, Transfigured Night is a gorgeous post-Wagnerian piece of music, and I've always loved it. But they played some of his other music that the host was saying this was so revolutionary. And yet, by today's ears, it didn't sound particularly revolutionary.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah, it's sounding more lyrical now than it used.
I think we actually have evolved in our appreciation for the post-romantic era, and that's a good thing, so that it frees people like you to be able to explore even more without an audience going away and saying, oh my goodness, that was shocking. Things are becoming more accessible than even 30 years ago, just because we're more sophisticated as audiences. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And I think it's a real renaissance in writing and for composers now. It's a really eclectic time. Anything goes. Although my music is accessible, I try to communicate in a way that's, I don't know, that is accessible. But I hope it's also something that people will want to return to.
I can't believe how fast this 40 minutes has gone. Unbelievable. It has really been great to talk with you, and for you taking the time out of the gorgeous San Diego weather to talk about this stuff.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to talk with you, and I hope we can be in touch going forward.
I hope that's true also. Maybe we'll get a chance to, when you're having one of your pieces performed by the Atlanta Symphony, we'll get a chance to meet. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, thanks.
Let's hear it for Debra and William for the great interview. And thank you for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below. If there is someone you would like William to interview, leave your suggestion in the comments section. Let us know what you like about this channel and any changes you would like to see. Please become a patron at any level. Even just a few dollars a month will help AMC to continue to grow and improve. Scan this QR code with your phone for direct access to www.patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. If you would like more information about today's guest, go here. This is Laird. Thanks again for watching Atlanta Music Critic. See you again soon with another in-depth interview about leaders in the classical music world.